We are doing this to our children, and we need to put an end to it.
Fuck you!
Here's John Oliver, UK comedian, suggesting that we needn't be cynical, sceptical even, about an autism epidemic. Let me know what you think about that in the comments and chat.
Kennedy's also been making some very bold promises like this.
We've launched a massive testing and research effort that's going to involve hundreds of scientists from around the world. By September, we will know what has caused the autism epidemic, and we'll be able to eliminate those exposures.
Okay, so first, there is no autism epidemic. There are autism diagnoses for people who are autistic, and it is pretty bold to claim you're going to get a definitive answer to something that people have been studying for decades by September. Almost as bold as admitting to dumping a bear corpse in Central Park.
It's very interesting, the continual reiteration of these rather salacious stories about bear corpses and whales and the brain worm. I know Bobby Kennedy, and what I know about him is he's a kind of outdoor survivalist man of nature, the kind of robust male archetype and role model we need to see brought to prominence in positions of political power right now, as a kind of insipid, insidious and tepid version of masculinity is propagated and demonstrated across the world as an example for young men. We are losing our connection to maleness. Masculinity is a bold and beautiful, powerful partner to femininity. The decrying and denigration of either of those archetypes is pretty ugly. Now, as I've said to you before, I know and admire John Oliver. I've not spoken to him for a long time. Of course, I occupy an entirely different world right now, but I know that he is a man of integrity, and I'm very surprised to hear him talk about autism in these terms because, of course, clinical trials around autism have always been limited, and this is kind of common sense and obvious. Who will pay for clinical trials that are not profitable? Is it not likely, obvious, and even logically undeniable that if you have a particular product, vaccines, that are granted indemnity, meaning that if anyone experiences a vaccine injury, it's very difficult to sue vaccine manufacturers, do you not see, is it not obvious that over time there's a bias towards creating a medicine that has built-in prophylactics against liability versus other medications for which you can be sued? There's a bias towards creating and generating vaccines precisely because of their legal positions. Remember, I've given you the example many times. Clinical trials are conducted in order to achieve a certain result and a certain perspective. The same as surveys. The way that you ask the question is vital and integral to the answers and results you're given. Anyone that's been to court, anyone that's been around lawyers knows this. You know the example I've given you many times, that when they needed to demonstrate that fruit that had been treated with pesticides was still a viable consumer product, and they knew that organic fruit was on the rise, the big agriculture growers funded an experiment at Stanford whereby apples that had been treated with pesticides were compared with organic apples, and the nature of the test was this: do they have the same amount of vitamins in them? Not, are pesticides carcinogenic? Not, do these pesticides have any other detrimental effects? Now, I reckon John Oliver probably eats organic food. Any person who can afford to eats organic food. Any person who could afford to would not eat chicken or meat that's been injected with antibiotics or hormone enhancements. All of us know that these chemical interventions are ultimately bad for us. The Stanford test said that when it comes to vitamins, there's no difference between pesticide-treated fruit and organic fruit. The legacy media ran headlines that read, there is no difference between organic fruit and pesticide-treated fruit. What a helpful headline that is to have. What a deceptive clinical trial that is to have conducted, because the lines of measurement and the lines of inquiry were constructed in order to achieve a predetermined result. No one's going to pay for tests that demonstrate that vaccines cause autism, because imagine the liability. The first thing, if you want my humble opinion, Bobby Kennedy should do is remove indemnity for vaccine manufacturers, so that people that can demonstrate and prove an empirical link between taking a vaccine and whatever condition, whether it's myocarditis for COVID, whether it's the neurological conditions that are demonstrably being caused by COVID vaccines, or some other condition, likely, potentially, possibly autism, then there's a legal route to be pursued. What do you imagine Big Pharma are spending all their lobbying money on? Why do you think the FDA receives 50% of its funding from Big Pharma? Do you think that there might be some contingency there for the way that those products are regulated? Let me know what you think in the comments and chat. I know John Oliver is a good comedian and a good person because I remember knowing him and doing stand-up with him and making a pilot with him for TV shows. But when it comes to this issue and participating in the attacks on Bobby Kennedy, that's doing the donkey work and the legwork of an establishment that wants to disempower an important voice in this space.
Your daughter telling the world you decapitated a whale with a chainsaw and yet still having the audacity to make a highlight reel on Instagram that simply says, animals. Keep their fucking name out of your fucking mouth. Most people agree. The vast majority of the rise in autism diagnoses is due to there being more research, better awareness, and more access for people to get an accurate diagnosis. That is what can happen when you put time and money into health services. But RFK has persisted in treating the rise in diagnoses as a tragedy, and the way he talks about autistic people in general can be utterly dehumanizing.
Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize we are doing this to our children, and we need to put an end to it.
Fuck you!
I don't understand that perspective. These are all absolutely legitimate observations and critiques. If you've been around people with serious autism or Asperger's, it's cost him a great deal to be outspoken about autism. It's not an easy subject. It's not like something you get a pat on the back for, like saying I support, Black Lives Matter, or something where people will applaud you. It's difficult. And the reason Bobby Kennedy got into it is because of mothers of autistic kids. Like, he didn't just go, oh, I'm going to get into this subject. This looks like a vote winner. Autistic mothers went to Bobby Kennedy and said, listen, you're a brilliant environmental lawyer. Can you help us, please? Our kids are sick and we know it's something to do with these vaccines. We know it as mothers. We know it as women. And Bobby Kennedy was like, oh no, this is a nightmare, but I'm going to have to help. And he got deeper and deeper into it. And the guy's brilliant, man. He won sort of legal cases against massive companies like Monsanto. He was the kind of person that someone like John Oliver would absolutely love if he knew him. Like a hero. All the stuff around animals, I was vegan for a long time. I'm not totally down with chopping off a whale's head. But I know the kind of life Bobby Kennedy lives. He can't even go on a walk without trying to capture lizards. He's like an outdoor kind of guy. He wants to dive deep and pull things and eat things. He's like a man of nature. That's what he is. He's a kind of man that's actually a pretty positive, as I said before, role model. Now, the deriding and ridiculing of him because he's hunted, you're simultaneously actually ridiculing a lot of Americans. I live in a part of America where it's normal to have guns, it's normal to hunt, it's normal to fish, and people ain't squeamish about things like having to smash a fish's head open when you've caught it or skin a deer or whatever. This is life for a lot of American people. And frankly, it should be life for all people, because if you're connected to nature, you're not so vulnerable and you're not so fallible to the urban institutions that want us all to be de-skilled little prisoners of a system. It's pretty good, I think, that Bobby Kennedy is able to survive and able to do chin-ups and pull-ups and push-ups and all of the ups. That's the kind of leader that we want. Certainly the kind of archetype that I've benefited from being around, archetype and person. By archetype, what I mean is through certain people, you sense something deeper is coming through them. It's coming through all of us. It's available to all of us. And I'm sort of disappointed with John Oliver because I really like him. And I want to believe that we can all overcome these somewhat superficial political and tribal differences. But when I see him sort of vociferously condemn Bobby Kennedy, and when I know what Bobby Kennedy's interest in autism is and where it comes from, I feel like, oh no, man, whether you know it or not, you are doing the work of the system right there. You are doing Big Pharma's job. Like when I'm talking now, I think, I don't think this is leading to people being more compliant and obedient to MAGA Maha movements, because my message, for what it's worth, is question everything, trust only God. Everyone's fallible, we're all broken, everyone's going to make mistakes. Don't get into it, don't have no foresight. That's where I'm coming from. And I also think that you lot, I watch the comments and chat, most of you are attacking me even while I'm talking. I'm good, I welcome it. Not even attacking, criticising, questioning. That's what we need. Anyway, let's have a look at this where he says that Bobby Kennedy that should be sacked. Let's check it.
I am not a physician or a scientist, despite admittedly looking like the child of Dr. Bunsen, Honeydew and Beaker of the Muppets. But I completely agree. RFK needs to go, and by impeachment if necessary.
That is exactly what Big Pharma want. That's exactly it. Like, whether you know it or not, in that moment, what you're doing is you're removing a powerful enemy of deep global and imperial interests, and you're doing it on the basis that it's going to help autistic kids. I reckon if John Oliver spent time with the autistic mothers that led Bobby Kennedy to take his very unpopular and difficult position when it comes to vaccines and autism, that John Oliver would go, no man, I don't believe this. That's what I reckon. I don't know, because I don't know John Oliver anymore.
To the extent any senators like Bill Cassidy were willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I still cannot believe that they thought they could do that, that grace period is emphatically over, because too much damage has already been done. This is a man who is clearly in way over his worm-riddled head.
Do you see how they repeat those tropes? Also, you do that as a comedian because you just need to tag the sort of funny ideas that are lying around. Like, oh, he did that thing with the bear. Oh, the pull-ups, his voice. They probably don't do the voice because they're liberal and they think, oh, that's kind of a protected characteristic. But they would, wouldn't they? And what I would say is this is not a good faith appraisal of the qualities and flaws of Bobby Kennedy. And even if you think it is, because all of us justify it to ourselves. I know John Oliver well enough to know that he wouldn't go like that. It's not like this. Like you lot some of you might go, well, he's been captured by the. It's not that. It won't be that people are going to John Oliver, you better get out there and attack Bobby Kennedy. It won't be that. It will be like a writer's room of like 10 guys, because I've had my own show before, like 10 guys, and these are the stories we could potentially cover this week. Let's do this Bobby Kennedy one. But HBO is a subscription channel, so it's not like they receive Big Pharma money, but just spend 5 minutes looking at what conglomeration ultimately owns HBO. That's where there'll be literal connections to Big Pharma. And beyond that, there's a kind of general sense that the liberal legacy media is so deeply affiliated with these kind of commercial interests that, as George Carlin, a truly great comedian, said, no conspiracy is necessary when interests converge.
You don't need a formal conspiracy when interests converge. These people went to the same universities and fraternities. They're on the same boards of directors. They're in the same country clubs. They have like interests. They don't need to call a meeting. They know what's good for them.
The interests of the media, the interests of the government, the interests of the judiciary, if they all align, that's when you get one narrative.
He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know who he's fired. He doesn't even know how many diabetic people there are in China. And if that wasn't bad enough, he's currently spreading dangerous nonsense and gutting life-saving research, all while bringing in a basement quack. RFK in this job is dangerous. In fact, if I may quote every single passenger in the cabin of his ill-advised, piss-footed walkabout, there is something deeply wrong with this guy, and we need to stop him before he makes us all fucking sick.
Real power does not present as power. It presents as natural. Real power has vessels and vassals, amplifiers and mouthpieces that sometimes don't even know that what they're doing is amplifying the message of the powerful. If you look at the sets of interests that Bobby Kennedy represents, and then look at the sets of interests that, say, HBO represents, you will find, I reckon, an interesting dichotomy, and you will be able to trace out and delineate the battle that's actually taking place. It's the one that we talk about continually here. Nativist populism versus globalism. It was Steve Bannon that said to me a few years ago, the future is going to be populist. We don't know if it's going to be left-wing or right-wing yet, but there are going to be populist uprisings because globalism is failing. We saw the beginnings of that. Curiously, let me trace it for you. Things like Napster, things like Occupy, were actually when the technological ability to share information, whether that's music files or memes around that led to the Arab Spring and communications to organise protests, led to new political dynamics and protest movements. This is playing out over time, of course, like everything plays out over time. And different political movements and figures and institutions are learning how to direct this movement. That's an old school institution, HBO now, by how fast time moves, how fast culture grows, mutates, and develops these days. And man, Bobby Kennedy is probably the one figure that we should probably look to and mentally investigate when looking for how politics can implement the will of people and change the world. Food dyes are getting banned, clinical trials are getting conducted, conversations are happening that are important and vital and have been avoided for a long time. And of course, that's going to be virulently, vociferously and aggressively opposed. Do you not think that the interests that pay huge money so that Pfizer doesn't get investigated for their 75-year closed files on COVID, that for their out-of-court settlements, the Johnson & Johnson out-of-court settlements around baby powder and carcinogens, do you think those interests are not invested in having Bobby Kennedy smeared and removed? I think they are. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.